Here's a question that trips up a lot of homeowners. You replace your roof, spend thousands of dollars on brand new shingles, and 5 years later, they're already curling and cracking. What went wrong? In a lot of cases, the shingles weren't the problem at all. The attic underneath them was. Let's talk about attic ventilation and why it might be quietly shortening the life of your roof. Here's the basic idea. Your attic needs to breathe. Air has to come in low, usually through vents at the eaves or soffits, which is the underside of your roof overhang, and it has to go out high, usually through a ridge vent or box vents near the top of the roof. When that flow works properly, it pulls heat and moisture out of the attic continuously. When it doesn't work, two things happen, depending on the season, and both are bad for your roof. In the summer, a poorly ventilated attic can turn into an oven. We're talking attic temperatures that can climb well above outdoor temps, sometimes over 150 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot day. That heat radiates upward into your shingles from underneath, on top of the sun beating down from above. Shingles are basically getting cooked from both sides. Asphalt shingles are rated to handle heat, but chronic overheating speeds up the breakdown of the asphalt, causing them to dry out, curl, and crack years before they should. In the winter, the bigger risk is moisture. Warm, humid air from inside your living space rises into the attic. If it can't escape, it condenses on the cold underside of your roof deck, which is the wood layer your shingles are nailed to. Over time, that moisture leads to mold, wood rot, and rusted nails. And here's the sneaky part. It also contributes to ice dams, where melting snow refreezes at the roof edge and can force water back up under your shingles. So how do you know if your attic has a ventilation problem? A few warning signs are worth checking for. Go up into your attic on a hot day, if you can do it safely. If it feels unbearably hot and stuffy, that's a clue. Look at the underside of the roof deck and the rafters for dark staining or anything that looks like mold. Check for frost or moisture on the underside of the roof in cold weather. Outside, take a look at your shingles from the ground with binoculars, or notice if they seem to be aging unevenly, curling more in some areas than others. And if you've had ice dams form along your roof edge in winter, that's often a ventilation clue too, not just an insulation issue. Now, ventilation problems are rarely just about the vents themselves. Insulation plays a huge role too. If your attic floor is under-insulated, heat from your living space rises straight into the attic, making the ventilation system work overtime. Good ventilation and good insulation work as a team. One without the other doesn't solve much. So what are your options if you find a problem? The most common fix is balancing intake and exhaust. That usually means making sure you have enough soffit vents low on the roof and enough ridge or box vents up high in the right ratio for your attic size. Building codes and roofing manufacturers typically recommend around 1 square foot of vent opening for every 150 to 300 square feet of attic floor, split evenly between intake and exhaust. That's a general guideline though, and your specific roof may need something different, so it's worth verifying with a contractor. As for cost, adding or upgrading vents is usually one of the more affordable roofing fixes out there. Simple additions like extra soffit vents might run a few $100s. A full ridge vent installation, done during a re-roof, is often just a few $100s more than a standard ridge cap, since you're already up there working. If you need this done outside of a re-roofing project, expect it to cost more due to the extra labor of accessing the roof separately. These are all ballpark figures, and actual costs will depend on your roof's size, pitch, and local labor rates, so get a written quote before committing. When you're talking to a contractor about ventilation, ask them to actually calculate your attic's square footage and existing vent capacity rather than guessing. Ask whether your soffit vents are actually open and unblocked by insulation, because that's a common hidden issue. And if they recommend adding powered attic fans, ask why, since in many cases balanced passive ventilation works better and doesn't add electrical costs or the risk of pulling conditioned air out of your living space. A red flag to watch for is any contractor who wants to install ridge vents without checking or improving your intake vents. Exhaust without intake doesn't work. It's like trying to drink from a straw with your finger over the other end. So here's your practical next step. If your roof is getting older or you've noticed uneven wear, take a few minutes to look at your attic. Check for heat, moisture, or staining. And when you get quotes for roof work, ask specifically about ventilation as part of the plan, not as an afterthought. If you're mapping out a re-roofing project and trying to figure out how much material you'll need, check out our free Roofing Squares calculator over at roofexplained.com. It's a simple way to get a solid estimate before you start calling contractors. If this helped you understand your roof a little better, give it a like and subscribe for more straight talk on keeping your roof healthy for the long haul.